This is the Weekly Roundup on the EAC Cambodia channel. Your look back at the week that was in the Kingdom of Wonder. A very good evening to you. My name is Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and we begin on Monday, the 30th of August. Booster shots for public school teachers are underway. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport started the rollout on Monday morning as it prepares for the reopening of secondary schools, possibly as early as October. Cambodia's vaccination rate has already crossed 81% of the targeted 10 million adult population who have been fully inoculated. EAC News reporter Reo Soko has the details.
Public school teachers in Phnom Penh gather at the National Pediatric Hospital for the third booster shots of COVID-19 vaccine. They are being administered AstraZeneca shot, with them having been fully vaccinated with either Sinopharm or Sinovac. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports has organized a whole week for vaccinating its personnel in the capital. The ministry is working towards a school reopening in the last quarter of the year. Part of that plan involves the vaccination of children aged between 12 and 17. Almost 75% of the 2 million target have received at least their first dose. The royal government has been lauded for its fast vaccination of both children and adults. The kingdom has already vaccinated over 66% of its total population of 16 million. Ministry of Health spokesperson Dr. Orvanden says an additional 2 million doses of Sinovac will arrive soon. These will be added to the over 25 million doses of different vaccines the kingdom has already received, both as orders and donations. Dr. Vandeen says government is hoping to achieve the 10 million adult target by the end of September. Rhea Soko, EAC News.
Officials on Koh Rong have clarified that vaccination cards are not needed to visit the popular island. They were responding to social media reports claiming that locals were being asked to provide proof of vaccination on arrival. Koh Rong's city governor, Nuon Buntol, says all tourists, vaccinated or not, are welcome to visit the island, but they must adhere to the health ministry's safety measures. The governor says, following the nationwide vaccination campaign, he has seen an increase in the number of tourists visiting Koh Rong, both local and foreign. He says there have been a few incidences of ferry companies not allowing unvaccinated individuals to board, but says Koh Rong authorities will be holding a meeting with tourist boat associations to discuss future vaccination requirements. But for now, proof of vaccination is not required. Governor Nuon Buntol says increasing numbers of tourists can easily help the local economy bounce back, and he's happy to welcome everyone as long as they follow health measures against the spread of COVID-19. Tourists are being reminded to always wear a mask, maintain social distancing and proper hygiene while enjoying themselves on the island. Police believe the two decomposing bodies found by a local resident in a remote area of Phnom Penh on Friday were murdered about 6 months ago. The bodies are believed to be of a man and a woman buried just 2 meters apart. Phnom Penh Municipal Police say the man had gunshot wounds while the woman had a fractured skull. EAC News reporter Reo Soko has the latest.
The bodies were discovered on Friday evening by a farmer in Tamrieng village when he went out looking for bamboo shoots. While walking through a field, he suddenly spotted a skull. He reported the find to his local police station in Kantuok Commune. When police arrived at the scene, they were shocked to find not one body but 2. Kambol District Deputy Police Chief Chim Sawut says they are treating the deaths as homicide. Judging from the victims' clothes, it's been established they were killed about 6 months ago. Ministry of Health Forensic Specialist Dr. Nung Suvanarut is working on the case. The male victim has been estimated to be between 45 and 60 years old. The woman is believed to be between 35 and 40. Rhea Soko, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has urged the Minister of Education to start reopening schools as soon as possible. He wants to start with schools in areas with low rates of COVID-19 infection. The Prime Minister delivered a speech on Tuesday morning, pointing out that most rural areas across the kingdom have very few cases of the coronavirus. He says the Ministry of Education should start reopening their schools to avoid student dropouts, which he says could lead to a more serious situation in the country. The Prime Minister has stressed, though, that any decisions to reopen schools will be left to the Education Minister and provincial governors. EAC News reporter Reo Soko has our top story.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has suggested that Minister of Education Hang Chun Narong reopen schools wherever it is safe to do so. He has emphasized that with the duration of school closures nationwide, it could be a more serious problem for the country when students are not learning at all. The Prime Minister says students in rural areas do not have access to the internet for online learning. In most rural areas, teachers are providing workbooks or home assignments, often with only part-time parental supervision. The Prime Minister says this leaves him feeling fearful for the future of the kingdom's children. He says they might even forget the alphabet if the schools remain closed for much longer. He's now urging the Minister of Education and governors to have a serious look at when schools can reopen safely.
I think rural schools, even at the primary level for children under 12, can go back to school because there are no infections. I suggest flexible thinking and practical implementation of the preventative measures in each province when it comes to reopening schools. Where it is possible to open a school, then let it reopen, while for places where it is not possible, then students should learn remotely or online. Where possible, let there be a mix of face-to-face learning and distance learning, otherwise our young children will be in a dangerous position. The majority of the population of Phnom Penh and Kandal are already protected against COVID-19. Infections in Phnom Penh are declining, and those who become infected do not develop serious illness. Mortality has also decreased. So this is a positive point for the reopening of the socio-economic sector across the country, including the field of education.
As of Monday, over 1.5 million children between the ages of 12 and 17 have already received at least their first dose of Sinovac. More than 300,000 have been fully vaccinated. The Prime Minister says booster shots will also be given to children to give them even more protection against the virus. An additional 2 million doses of Sinovac arrived in the kingdom from China on Tuesday morning. Reyes Soko, EAC News.
Despite reports to the contrary, British nationals arriving in Cambodia do qualify for alternative state quarantine. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has informed the British Embassy that passengers from the UK can book their own quarantine directly at one of the 4 approved hotels. In an official note to the British Embassy, the Interministerial Committee to Combat COVID-19 has clarified that British nationals do not need to stay at the OK Boutique Hotel on Street 174 in Phnom Penh, but can book their quarantine directly at one of the capital's 4 ASQ hotels. Those are Sofitel, Soka Hotel, Courtyard by Marriott Phnom Penh, and Raffles Hotel Le Royal. There was some confusion when the ASQ pilot project first launched, with British nationals apparently being told they could not book their 14-day quarantine stays directly and had to stay at the OK Boutique Hotel. Alternative state quarantine was launched last month and allows incoming passengers to pre-book their 14-day stays. Those passengers with no prior bookings are being sent to quarantine hotels at random on arrival at Phnom Penh International. The United States has completed its controversial and shambolic withdrawal from Afghanistan. 20 years of effective occupation came to an end in the early hours of Tuesday morning as the last U.S. military plane left Kabul's Hamid Karzai International Airport. The U.S. leaves a shattered nation back in the hands of the very group it went in to destroy. Major General Chris Donahue, commander of the 82nd Airborne Division, photographed as he stepped aboard a C-17 transport plane. He was the last U.S. service member to leave Afghanistan. The flight ends a hasty and humiliating exit, with Washington and its allies carrying out a massive but chaotic airlift over the past 2 weeks. Tens of thousands of Afghans who helped Western countries and might have qualified for evacuation have been left behind. Across Kabul, gunfire rang out in celebration at news that the US withdrawal had been completed. Soon after the final US military flight left, members of the Taliban walked across the tarmac, telling reporters that everything will be fine. But the airport has been left with no air traffic control and remains vulnerable to rocket attacks by Islamic State. All civilian aircraft are being advised to stay well clear of Afghan airspace, at least for the time being. That advisory puts a big question mark over US Secretary of State Antony Blinken's remarks in Washington that the US would continue working with its international partners to get its remaining civilians and Afghan associates out of the country.
We will work to secure their safe passage. This morning, I met with the foreign ministers of all the G7 countries, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Canada, Italy, Japan, as well as Qatar, Turkey, the European Union, and the Secretary General of NATO. We discussed how we will work together to facilitate safe travel out of Afghanistan, including by reopening Kabul's civilian airport as soon as possible. And we very much appreciate the efforts of Qatar and Turkey in particular to make this happen. This would enable a small number of daily charter flights, which is a key for anyone who wants to depart from Afghanistan moving forward. We're also working to identify ways to support Americans, legal permanent residents, and Afghans who have worked with us and who may choose to depart via overland routes.
Back in Kabul, Taliban commander Qari Samullah says the group will do its best to establish a safe atmosphere in the country and that together the people of Afghanistan will build a new homeland. On the streets there is fear, though, with memories still fresh of the Taliban's previous regime, during which music was banned, women were not allowed to work, and girls were barred from education. Public executions were also commonplace. The United Nations says the country is facing a dire humanitarian crisis, cut off from foreign aid amid a drought, mass displacement, and the pandemic. A chaotic occupation may be over, but an extremely uncertain future has begun. As the country continues to battle the spreading Delta variant of COVID-19, Siem Reap has declared 2 new red zones, joining other border provinces in tightening up preventative measures. EAC news reporter Yuri Matosko has the details.
The Siem Reap Provincial Administration has declared Pralay and Korksnol villages as red zones. Both are located in the Puok district. They will be in total lockdown until the 14th of September. Other administrative measures across the province remain in place until further notice. Across the provincial border, Priya Vihyar has 3 active red zones, the villages of Kulengchon and Kulentapon, both in the province's Kulen district. And the whole of Chuangsan district are in lockdown until next Wednesday. Also along the border, Bingche Mengche is home to 2 red zones, Toktla and Kampong Savai, both in Seray Soporn City. Cambodia is placing special attention on its provinces with border Thailand, with most Delta variant cases being detected in migrant workers returning from the country. Yuri Matosko, EAC News.
The Health Ministry is reportedly working on an exit strategy to ease COVID-19 restrictions and get the country ready to live in a new normal. Health Ministry spokeswoman Or Van Dien has been quoted as saying that the kingdom needs to start learning how to live with the virus, but says for now, preventative guidelines issued by the government will remain in place. Current restrictions in Phnom Penh are due to expire next Friday. EAC news reporter Johnny McCune has more.
For the capital's high-risk businesses, the new normal couldn't come soon enough. They've been closed since early March, but the sight of people wearing masks, socially distancing, and avoiding crowds as much as possible is probably with us to stay. 80% of the population has already received 2 doses of the vaccine. Cambodia, like Singapore, is striving to reach herd immunity, even with the variants likely to stay with us. The new normal is going to mean living with COVID much the same way as we live with the flu. World Health Organization representative to Cambodia, Dr. Lee Allen, says that WHO is very pleased that the overall COVID-19 situation is now improving in Cambodia. At the same time, the Health Ministry is looking at expanding the vaccine drive to include children aged 10 to 12. It's looking to use the Sinovac doses, which continue to stream into Nompang International. Sinovac is already being used in children as young as 3 in China and is being used to inoculate Cambodian children in the 12 to 17 age group. Johnny McCune, EAC News.
It's a new month and a new start for Afghanistan. The Taliban is moving quickly to assert itself a day after Western evacuations were completed from Kabul's Hamid Karzai International, and the last US troops left Afghan soil after 20 years of occupation. The Taliban, parading themselves victoriously on the tarmac of an airport that was the center of the world's attention for the past week. Over 125,000 Western diplomats and some of the Afghans who worked for them were airlifted during one of the largest operations of its kind in history. But thousands of Afghans have been left behind. The Taliban says they have nothing to fear and there is no longer a need for war. Taliban spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid says the group wants diplomatic relations with the United States as well as with other countries around the world as it seeks to rebuild a country shattered by decades of civil war, invasion, and occupation. The group says its first job is to reopen Kabul's main airport. Elsewhere in the capital, though, possibly predictable scenes of what some members of the Taliban really think about their former occupiers. This was billed as a celebration by a group that is promising peace, stability, and socio-economic development in a new Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. Across the region, there is a sense of resignation that isolating the Taliban is not going to be an option, and that engagement is going to be key to ensuring regional security. In Qatar, Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani was hosting his German counterpart. He told the media he's choosing to look on the bright side.
We believe that isolation is not an answer, yet the recognition is still not a priority for us. So this is given our assessment that Taliban being isolated in 1996 has led us to the situation that we were in previously in Afghanistan. Yet we have seen that the engagement can give us some positive results.
He is urging countries around the world to work with the Taliban, as another power vacuum would be the worst possible outcome for the international community. Not one country has yet formally recognized the Taliban as the government of Afghanistan. EAC News fully supports the Royal Government of Cambodia's preventative and administrative measures against COVID-19. But we need you to play your part in helping bring the 20 February community transmission event to an end. Wash your hands regularly, sanitize wherever possible. Keep an eye on your body temperature. Use the Stop COVID QR code and maintain a safe social distance. But above all, please, 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 wear a mask. Only together can we beat COVID-19. If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of eArts Cambodia's platforms and channels: YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eartscambodia.com. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear. Banteay Menche has been hit by heavy flooding. Days of torrential rain has left much of Seresiapon city submerged, with hospitals in dire need already dealing with the province's surge in Delta-related COVID-19 cases. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko has the latest.
Torrential rain has lashed central Thailand and northwestern Cambodia in recent days. Worst hit Banteay Menche. Its provincial capital, Seresiapon City, is on high alert. Its referral hospital has been heavily affected. Doctors and nurses have scrambled to get medicine, materials, and equipment out of harm's way. They've made an urgent appeal for donations of blood. Commander of the province 51st Infantry Brigade, General Singtum, has called on residents to be extra vigilant, particularly those with small children. He says the high water levels pose an increased risk of animals and insect bites. The floods have also affected 100 homes along the border in Malay, Boeng Beng, Oseralau, and Topong communes. 10 families had to be evacuated. Authorities have confirmed that water levels are already receding and that roads will soon return to normal. But the threat hasn't gone away. The Ministry of Water Resources says a low-pressure system over the Indian Ocean will bring more heavy rain to the kingdom over the next 5 days. Yuri Matosko, EAC News.
Two brothers, aged 9 and 14, are not to be held liable for the death of their 4-year-old cousin. She died after having a phone charger wrapped around her neck. Police say the cousins had been fighting in the lead-up to the tragedy and say proper parental supervision would have prevented the little girl's death. EAC News reporter Reo Soko has the latest.
A squabble between children, leading to the tragic death of a 4-year-old girl in Suaireng's Naraten village. Two brothers, aged 9 and 14 years, were initially held liable, but police say, given their age, they cannot be arrested or charged. They need their parents' supervision. Suaitrum District Police Inspectorate Colonel Pin An says that the girl was strangled on Monday during a fight with her cousins. She'd been left in the care of her aunt by her mother, who works at a garment factory in Bavet. Found unresponsive by her aunt, the girl was rushed to hospital but died shortly after arrival. A forensic examination revealed bruises in different parts of her body, leading to the investigation by police. Cambodian children's law prohibits the arrest of minors under 14. That children will be counseled, while police have stressed just how important adult supervision is, most especially while schools remain closed. Rhea Soko, EAC News.
On to international news now, and the Taliban are out on the streets of Kabul to protect people's property and lives amid an administrative vacuum following their takeover. A new government has yet to be named, and few details about how the group intends to govern have been released. It's causing anxiety around the world, but most especially on the streets of Kabul. All we know is that this is the new Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. We don't know who's in charge, what the government will look like, when it will first meet, or how it will actually govern. While Kabul residents say the security situation has improved, life is getting tough. Some banks, most hospitals, and government offices remain open, but while local market vendors have things to sell, few people are buying, given the high levels of anxiety about what the next few days and weeks could bring. Prices are soaring, and long queues outside banks underline just how worried residents of the capital are. The local currency, the Afghani, is fast losing its value against the US dollar. At the border with Pakistan, many money traders are refusing to exchange it. The fall in the exchange rate has seen prices for many basic foodstuffs ratchet up daily, squeezing people who have seen their salaries disappear and their savings put out of reach by the closure of the banks. The Taliban says the problems will ease once a new government is in place. It's appealed to other countries to maintain economic relations. One country that will be key is the United States, but its focus right now is getting its remaining nationals and Afghan contract workers out of the country after its shambolic airlift.
You know, we have obviously had contacts with the Taliban. We had it during the effort that we were trying to midwife a negotiation. Those conversations have continued intensively to enable the evacuation of that we undertook and to try to get the kinds of guarantees of safe passage, et cetera, and tolerance, and to talk about the standards set in the UN Security Council resolution, to talk about the terrorist threat as well, because the expectation is that they claim to be able to control the security of Afghanistan. We'll see if that is the case. That is a far cry from formal recognition. We will continue to have conversations that serve our interest, as will our allies and partners. But the first thing we want to see is them live up to the obligations that they have under the UN Charter, as well as the public statements that they themselves have made about their expectation for an Afghanistan that respects human rights, respects international law, allows international citizens and Afghans who wish to leave.
Back in Kabul, the Taliban is taking stock at the capital's main airport. It says it hopes to restore operations there in the coming days. Prime Minister Hun Sen has reiterated his commitment towards resolving the kingdom's energy and climate change issues. He was speaking on Friday morning during the 2021 Taiwan Low Carbon Energy Development Forum under the theme Energy, Climate, Environment. The Prime Minister has called for political commitment from countries around the world to promote green growth, reduce carbon emissions, and ensure environmental priorities. EAC News reporter Reo Soko has the story.
Prime Minister Hun Sen says energy, climate, and environmental issues, especially climate change, remain major challenges for humanity as a whole. He says although Cambodia is a country with a low level of development, the royal government is highly committed to setting these issues as an important policy agenda and not only for the short term.
In an environment where the whole world has been fighting against COVID-19, this forum is a reminder that we should not forget about energy, climate, and environmental issues that require continued attention, positioned with a responsibility through constant thinking in finding common global solutions. In an environment where many countries have been considering socio-economic rehabilitation plans, this forum will provide a good opportunity to accelerate the development of low-carbon sources to address energy, climate, and environmental issues, achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and the goals of the Paris Agreement on climate change.
Prime Minister Hun Sen concluded his address saying Cambodia considers carbon credit to be an important source of sustainable financing for reducing greenhouse gas activities and is open to engaging in partnerships with interested countries as well as the private sector.
Electricity to Cambodia will be playing a key role as the royal government aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 64% by 2030. That is equivalent to 6 million tons less of carbon dioxide. The Prime Minister says the government is serious in addressing energy and climate change issues in the kingdom for the betterment of its people and the environment. Raya Soko, EAC News, Phnom Penh.
Those controversial Vietnamese Nam Vang noodles are no longer on the shelves in the United States. The Ministry of Commerce has confirmed that the Cambodian embassy in Washington has contacted the distributor who has agreed to take the product off the market. Nam Vang is Vietnamese for Phnom Penh. To make matters worse, the noodles' packaging bears an image of Angkor Wat. And while they're no longer commercially available, the search for their manufacturer continues. EAC News reporter Reo Soko dishes up the details.
It all started with a photo posted on social media. A picture of the Nam Vang noodle product being sold in the US, proudly displaying Angkor Wat and the name Phnom Penh in Vietnamese. Only trouble is, the noodles are not made in Cambodia. The Cambodian government says it has no record at all providing authorization for the brand. Ministry of Commerce spokesperson Siang Thai says they've managed to identify the distributor, but the hunt for whoever actually made them goes on. Based on the name Nam Vang, it is presumed that manufacturer is in Vietnam, but the current COVID-19 situation is hampering the investigation. The ministry has reiterated that the use of the brand name Phnom Penh and the image of Angkor Wat without the permission of Cambodian authorities is a violation of Cambodian law, international agreements, and treaties. Rhea Soko, EAC News.
Well, now for a look at news making headlines around the world this Friday, the 3rd of September.
New York under a state of emergency because of the weather. Hundreds of motorists left stranded in their vehicles in Yonkers after getting caught in flash floods that pummeled parts of New Jersey and New York thanks to the remnants of Hurricane Ida. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio declared an historic weather event, with record-breaking rain across the city leading to flooding and dangerous conditions. The Big Apple's famous subway stations were all submerged, with services completely suspended late on Wednesday, local time. A flash flood warning was issued for most of the city. The situation is slowly returning to normal, with flights resuming out of New York and New Jersey, but climate experts warn that big cities around the world are going to have to get used to scenes like this.
Police in the North Carolina district of Winston-Salem have confirmed a tragic shooting incident at Mount Tabor High School. The victim was identified as William Chavis Raynard Miller Jr. He was brought to Atrium Health Wake Forest Baptist Hospital but died of his injuries. The Forsyth County Sheriff's Office reported that a suspect has been taken into custody. It was North Carolina's second school shooting this week. On Monday, authorities said several students exchanged gunfire at New Hanover High School in Wilmington. A 15-year-old was shot and wounded. He remains in stable condition. Authorities have arrested and charged a teenager with attempted first-degree murder and assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill. The local sheriff says behavior like this cannot be tolerated in America's school system.
And a semi-submersible vehicle has been intercepted by Colombian Marines. People manning the boat threw themselves into the water and fled into a mangrove forest, abandoning their 17-meter vessel and its cargo. 90 sacks containing 1,800 packages of pure cocaine were found. The operation effectively prevented the trafficking of more than 40 million hits of cocaine to the neighboring countries. The drugs have a street value of $60 million. In just the past month, the Colombian Navy has intercepted more than $200 million worth of cocaine belonging to a dissident group that was formerly part of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia.
EAC News fully supports the Royal Government of Cambodia's preventative and administrative measures against COVID-19. But we need you to play your part in helping bring the 20 February community transmission event to an end. Wash your hands regularly. Sanitize wherever possible. Keep an eye on your body temperature. Use the Stop COVID QR code. And maintain a safe social distance. But above all, please, please, please wear a mask. Only together can we beat COVID-19. If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of eArts Cambodia's platforms and channels. YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eartscambodia.com. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear. He wanted to win it, and he did. But he probably didn't like how he won it. Red Bull's Max Verstappen won Formula One's shortest ever race on Sunday, with the rain-hit Belgian Grand Prix red-flagged after just 3 laps, the minimum number required for points to be awarded. George Russell finished second for Williams, securing his first ever appearance on a Formula One podium. 7 times world champion Lewis Hamilton was third for Mercedes, and his overall lead over Verstappen has been cut to just 3 points. No one was happy about the outcome, with driver after driver queuing up to tell the media just how disappointed they were. And yes, that includes the man who will go down in history as winning the shortest Formula One Grand Prix ever.
You know, you have to take it. The conditions were just very difficult out there. Even worse, of course, for the guys behind me, even though, you know, my visibility wasn't that bad. But also then, basically, you know, the conditions just became worse and worse from 3 o'clock onwards. So maybe we should start the race at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. That would be a bit better for everyone, I think.
Lewis Hamilton wasn't a happy man either, although his thoughts were with the 75,000 fans who stood in the rain for over 3 hours before the race even started.
I feel mostly for the fans, you know. I so badly wanted it. I was looking out the window the whole time I was in my truck, hoping that the rain would ease off, and I was looking at the radar, hoping that it's going to ease off so we can open up a window for us. But it never did. And the fans just sitting out in the cold and the rain, and the kids out there that were sitting out for so many hours, and they still were so hopeful. I've been telling everyone I think they deserve their money back today, because as a sport we didn't give them a show that wasn't a race. It shouldn't be counted as a race either.
But it is going to count. Formula One says the rules were observed and the points will stand, meaning the race for the Drivers' Championship is suddenly wide open. Cristiano Ronaldo spent Monday training with Portugal ahead of their World Cup qualifier against Ireland on Wednesday. The training session came a day after Ronaldo reportedly completed a medical in Lisbon ahead of his return to Manchester United. Juventus and Man United have yet to actually confirm the deal, but reports say Ronaldo has agreed to personal terms for a 2-year contract with the Premier League giants. An announcement is expected later on Tuesday, with the Premier League's summer transfer window closing in the early hours of Wednesday morning, Cambodian time. Man United are rubbing their hands in glee at having one of their biggest ever stars coming back. Ronaldo won 8 major trophies at United between 2003 and 2009 before sealing a then world record $110 million move to Real Madrid. With the English League paused for the international break, Ronaldo is expected to play his first game back at Old Trafford when United host Newcastle next Saturday. It's been pouring down in Tokyo, but it hasn't put a dampener on Paralympic glory. More world records were smashed on Tuesday and Wednesday, with Britain notching up its 1,000th gold Olympic-Paralympic medal since new funds were injected into British sport after the country's disastrous showing at Atlanta back in 1996. Dame Sarah Storey won her 16th gold medal in the women's C5 cycling time trial. Most of the action, though, was on the drenched surface of the athletics track. Before we get to that, though, great news for Cambodian sports fans. Our Paralympian, Van Von, has reached Wednesday night's final of the T54 100-meter men's wheelchair race. He qualified with a new personal best and will start in the 7th lane. Elsewhere, French runner Charles-Antoine Kaku achieved a surprise victory in the men's T20 400-meter final. Mexico's José Rodolfo Garcia could hardly hide his delight at winning gold in the T38 400-meter final. In the women's T64 200 meters, it was a great day for the Dutch as they picked up gold and bronze. Marleen van Gansewinkel roared with delight as she crossed the finish line in a new Paralympic record time of 26:22. She was followed by Germany's Irmgard Bensuan in second and fellow Dutch runner Kimberly Alkemade in third. In the women's T11 100 meters, Venezuela's Linda Patricia Perez Lopez won gold, having watched her sister pick up a bronze medal earlier in the day. Archery also provided a stunning spectacle, with China's He Jiao firing 9 successive 10-point arrows to take home the gold medal.
From China is your Paralympic.
Cambodia can be proud of its lone Paralympian at the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics. Van Von finished in 7th place in Wednesday night's final of the men's T54 100-meter wheelchair race. He finished in a new personal best time of 14.21 seconds. Finland's Leo-Pekka Tati looked to be the race favourite. He's won gold in the last 4 Paralympic finals in the same event, but it was Thailand's Atiwatpaing Noa who crossed the finish line first. The T54 final was the highlight of Wednesday night's action, and Van Von did us all proud. In the women's T36 100-meter race, it was China's Shi Yiting who produced a gold medal performance to break the world record with a time of 13.61 seconds. Russia's Elena Ivanova seemed pretty happy to bag the silver. It was also silver for Canada's Paralympic veteran Brent Lakotos, who was looking to hold on to his T53 men's 100-meter crown, but gold went to Thailand's Payo Bangsakon. Cristiano Ronaldo has entered the history books. He's become the all-time leading scorer in men's international football after scoring his 110th and 111th goals on Wednesday night.
Ronaldo made history in true style. Not just 2 goals, but 2 headers, and in the dying minutes of the match. They gave Portugal a 2-1 comeback win over Ireland in Group A of the World Cup qualifiers. The Manchester United forward almost had a hat-trick, but saw Gavin Buzuno save his first half penalty. It was the 89th minute of the game when Ronaldo entered the history books, surpassing Iranian Ali Daei's record of 109 goals with a towering header. He then produced a carbon copy in the 6 minutes of stoppage time to score goal number 111. Back at Man United for the next season of the English Premier League, there's no doubt Ronaldo will take his record even higher.
They may have come last in their heat, but Cape Verde's Quella Nedrea Pereira Semedo and her guide finished first when it came to making headlines at the 2020 Paralympics on Thursday. It was one of the heats in the women's T11 200 meters. The visually impaired runners are helped down the track with a guide. Pereira Semedo can be seen here coming in a distant 4th with a time of 33.04 seconds. But the seconds immediately following the race are ones she will never forget. Her guide, Manuel Vaz de Vega, dropped down on one knee and popped the question. It took spectators a few seconds to realize what was happening, but it seems Pereira Semedo's competitors knew it was coming. A wedding date has yet to be set. And finally, Scotland's independent whiskey maker Gordon and MacPhail has unveiled what is believed to be the world's oldest single malt Scotch whiskey ever to be bottled. It's an 80-year-old Scotch and will go on auction at Sotheby's in November. The 700-milliliter bottle of Generation's 80-year-old has been unveiled in London by the designer of its crystal decanter, architect Sir David Ajayi. This bottle is one of only 250 to be produced from a single cask at Scotland's Glenlivet distillery. It is also the only one to be auctioned. The remaining 249 bottles will be available to buy directly. The price tag is yet to be revealed, but Ajayi says it'll be worth every cent.
I took that as an opportunity to really think about the unique milestone that Gordon MacPhail had achieved by actually even producing whiskey that was drinkable after 80 years. It's beyond drinkable, it's sublime. And thought about it as a kind of a piece of architecture. It really, in a way, for me, it's an architecture in the miniature.
The price it's likely to fetch on auction, though, won't be miniature. Decanter number 1, as it's known, will have an estimate of between $110,000 and $220,000. Assuming it goes for top dollar, that'll mean it'll be worth $7,850 a tot. All right, let's have a look at what the weather's going to be up to tomorrow. Thank you for watching the Weekly Roundup here on the EART's Cambodia channel. More from the EAC news team in the Daily Roundup, Monday nights at 8. I'll see you then.